Welcome back to the channel, and this is a channel where we give you reviews, playthroughs, unboxings. Generally like to talk a load of bollocks. Tabletop gaming in general, and in this video we're going to be talking about a dry, themeless Euro game. We're going to be talking about Tiletum, and in this game you'll be drafting dice from a rondel. You'll be taking actions based on the dice that you chose that will allow you to get victory points that will allow you to win the game. So in this video we're going to give you a very brief overview of the rules. We'll be telling you what we do like, what we don't like, and we'll come back and we'll tell you whether or not Tiletum is worth your time and bother today and in the future. So remember, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to this channel, hit the like button and all that YouTube bullshit. See you after this. Bollocks. So Tiletum, how'd you play this game? So I warn you now, this isn't going to be a tutorial of this game. It's going to be a very brief overview of the rules because it is sort of a semi-complicated game once you get underneath the initial mechanism. So tough shit if you're thinking you're going to get a freebie. Go and watch one of the other tosspot reviewers out there. Right. So the aim of Tiletum is to get the most victory points by the end of 4 rounds. This is a turn-based game which takes place over a number of phases. The first phase is the preparation phase. Because this is a dice drafting game, you're going to take a certain number of dice out of the bag and you will place them around the rondel. The only thing you've got to remember is that all the dice of a certain value will go in the slot corresponding to the amount of pips that are on the dice, right? Thick, are you? So phase 1 is the action phase. This is where you're going to be taking actions. The first player will reveal the first tile on the corruption track, and if a 1 or 2 is revealed, then all players will move 1 or 2 down the track, right? So step 2 of phase 1 will allow you to take a die from the rondel. You'll see that the rondel has got 2 different things on it, right? The pips on the die represent the amount of resources of that type that you're going to get. So if you take a 6 pink dice, you're going to get 6 food, and the opposite number, because the opposite size of dice add up to 7, as if you thick fuckers didn't know that, you'll get the opposite end of it in action points, right? You can immediately spend a gold to subtract 1 from the value of your dice, and you can cycle rounds. You can go from a 6 to a 1, and if there's a bonus tile, then you'll be able to stick it in your bleeding storehouse. And then finally you'll take the action associated with your dice. We'll go through all the actions in a bit, so don't get impatient, right? So once everybody has finished taking their actions, then you'll go into the king phase. The player who's highest up on the king's track, the player who gave the king the most blowjobs, will take the bonus tile from the king space. Then all players score points dependent on their position on the king track, right? And this will also determine turn order for the next round, yeah? So if you're first on the king track, you'll go first in the next round. So now we'll go through all the actions that you could take, right? Don't get bored now. So the first action is the architect action, and this allows you to spend 1 action point to move your architect on the map from one spot to another. You can add a pillar from your personal supply to a cathedral for 1 action point, but your architect has got to be located on the space that you want to do this. Architect's rock. So next action is the merchant action. This is kind of similar to the architect action. You can move your merchant 1 space around a map. You can add a house from your personal supply to a town, and if the house space contains a building bonus, you're going to get that and all. Or you can take a bonus tile from the town where you're at, right? So the next action is the character action. You can take a character from the character offer and stick it in your storehouse. You can discard all character tiles from the character offer and replenish them immediately, or you can move a character tile from your storehouse to a room on the 1st, 2nd or 3rd floor of your player board. You can't have 2 different buildings with the same character because the same person can't live twice in the same house unless you've been transported into some fucked up multiverse type thing. And as soon as a character's placed, you get the character bonus. Next action is the contract action. You can take a contract from the offer, spending a number of action points indicated, and stick it in your storehouse. You can exchange one of your resources for a different resource. First time you do this, you get a second resource of your choice. Lovely. And you could also take the king action. And it says for each action point you have, you can advance 1 space up the king track. Think of this as giving 1 blowjob per point, right? And the final action that you could take is the joker action, and this lets you take any other solid action on the rondel, but you use the dice that is in the joker spot. So really, this is like my favourite action because you can let all the other people chomp up all the dice, and then you can all over the joker. There's also tasks that you could do which don't involve placing dice. You can spend 2 gold to gain 1 other resource. You can fulfill a contract anytime you like, just going to pay the resources and get the shit, right? You can spend food to move a crest tile from your storehouse onto one of the buildings, right? And you will also take the bonus, right? So these crests are pretty lucrative. You can move your merchant to any space, you can move your architect to any space, or you can contribute to the building of any cathedral where you already have a pillar. You'll spend the required amount of stone, and you'll take the topmost cathedral. You can't take one that you've already got because you can't own 2 of the same cathedrals, and you'll score victory points for this at the end of the game. And finally, you can use a helper ability. It's getting a bit long-winded, isn't it? From a bonus tile in your storehouse. After resolving the helper ability, then this is sadly removed from the game and your existence. So once everybody has finished taking their actions, and you're going to move on to the fair phase. During setup, you'll place tiles out onto the board which will indicate where the fairs are going to take place in each round. Yeah, first one's printed on, it always takes place in Tiletum, so you're going to be able to get a bit of candy floss and throw a few rancid tomatoes at a criminal in the stocks. Other than that, you'll either have to have a house in the town, or you will have had to have moved your merchant into that town where the fair's taking place, and you will score the points dependent on what's on the tile. So you might get 2 points for each pillar that you've got on a board. You might get 6 points for each house and pillar that you've built. You might score 3 points for each fulfilled contract that you've done, or you might score 3 points for each character on floors 2 and 3 of your buildings, whether they're complete or not, because in the Middle Ages there was no building regulations, right? So you just build whatever the fuck you like. So I'm sure there's other shit that we haven't covered, and I can't be asked to go back and look, see whether we missed anything if important, and it doesn't matter anyway, because the rules are available online for the sad spotty geeks like you. So the game will end after the 4th round, and you do a bit of final scoring. You'll multiply the number of houses by the number of pillars that you got on the map, and you get that many victory points. You'll count the number of completed buildings, blah 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 blah, you know the drill. Yeah, you're just going to add up some shit, and then you'll come to a final total, and the player with the most points will be the winner of Tiletum. So what do we like about Tiletum? So the first thing that we really like about this is the simplicity of the core mechanism, which is the dice drafting. The fact that you're just going to be taking a die off of a rondel, and you're going to take the action associated with that. Not only that, the fact that you've got 2 things to think about when you're taking the die. You're going to have to think about whether or not you need resources, because obviously you're going to need food and stone to do other things in the game. You're going to have to try and juggle that with the need to get action points for a specific action you're going to do with the resources that you've gathered in previous rounds. So there's this nice toss-up between spending points and spending resources, and having points and having resources, right? So the second thing that we really like about this game is the fact that the game forces you to choose between having less resources and more action points, or more action points and less resources. That provides a nice little conflict in your brain. The fact that you need both to succeed in this game means that there's an agonising choice every single turn that you make, and those agonising choices get even broader when you branch off into the path of what you are actually going to do with the main action, and also the tasks that can augment the action, right? So this is a game about internal conflicts in your head. There's not really that many external conflicts with your opponents aside from taking the dice off the board, but the nice thing is that more often than not there's more than one of each of the dice, or there's none at all. So you win some or you lose some. So the final thing that we like about Tiletum is that there is always something to do on your turn. If you don't get the die that you want, then there's the opportunity to go crazy with the resources and store them up. And because of this, there's always the opportunity to diversify your strategy. Maybe you can't double down on the cathedrals. Maybe you're going to have to go into the character assassination market by flooding your buildings with anonymous assholes. And the fact that you could chain actions together, because the bonus tiles let you take other actions. You can do one action, take the bonus tile, put it in your storehouse, and then activate it for later. So the fact that the game offers you this glorious opportunity to get 2 for the price of 1, 3 for the price of 1, or even I have seen 5 for the price of 1 actions, then for such a drab and boring game, it is actually quite an exciting experience. So what don't we like about Tiletum? So the first thing that we don't like, and the elephant in the room here, is both the lack of theme and the drab looking nature of the components, namely the board. The fact that there is little to no theme. It's a theme that has been replicated a billion times over the last 25 years in these Euro games, is just trading in the medieval era. It doesn't really do much to sell the game to people that might be sick to death of these types of games. Add to that the washed out nature of the board. It looks like a bowl of rice pudding with its beige pastel shades. It's just a shame that they went for this horrible muted colour scheme, when if you look at its competitors, like say Marco Polo for instance, it looks absolutely fantastic. It's bright, it's vivid, and it's vibrant, yeah? So it's just a shame that the palette of this game is so lacklustre. So the second thing that we don't like about this game is the length of time it takes to play with 4 players, and that's the ideal player count for us. We love playing this with 4 players, and the fact that the game can change each turn when somebody takes the die that you want means that your strategy isn't going to be baked in for that long. You're going to have to keep changing your plans for the future turns, right? And this means that there's going to be a lot of board staring, a lot of downtime, and it's going to take a little while for those turns to come round. If you add to that the fact that people are going to be chaining lots of actions together in the middle to later stages of the game, that's when your brain starts to evaporate. Then that could be a problem for some people. It's not a problem for me because I'm hard as fuck, but it might be a problem for you snowflakes, right? So the final thing that we don't like about this, and this is another complaint about the aesthetics of the game, is that some of the dice colours are a little bit too similar. The light grey and the dark grey dice can be a little bit confusing when you're looking at the resources that they represent. And the dice themselves, yeah, on numerous occasions when we played this, I have looked at the die and thinking that it represents stone, when in fact it represents wool. Wool is white, die is grey, makes no sense, and it's bollocks. So to summarise, is Tiletum worth your time and bother today and in the future? So we're going to say yes, absolutely. Tiletum is a truly excellent dice drafting themeless Euro that doesn't do enough to promote itself on both the box cover and also the components in the box itself. The possibility to chain huge combos together makes me salivate with anticipation while waiting to play this game. But the downtime with the optimal player count of 4 players and the drab, lifeless aesthetics of the board means that this one could disappear as quickly as it arrived. So there you go, that's Tiletum. Remember, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to this channel, hit the like button and all that YouTube bullshit. See you next time.